Most people think the strange things dogs do are just random, but almost every odd behaviour your dog shows actually comes from instinct, communication, or the way dogs interpret the world around them. Zoomies. If you have ever seen your dog suddenly sprint across the house, slide across the floor, and start running in circles like they just drank 5 cups of coffee, you have witnessed what dog owners call the zoomies. Scientifically, this behaviour is known as a FRAPS, which stands for frenetic random activity periods. It usually happens when dogs have a burst of stored energy that needs to be released quickly. You will often see zoomies after a bath, after a long nap, or when a dog has been holding an excitement for a while. Instead of slowly releasing that energy, their nervous system suddenly lets it all out at once. For a few seconds, the dog runs, spins, jumps, and moves in unpredictable patterns. It may look chaotic, but it is actually a natural way for dogs to reset their energy levels. Once the burst is over, most dogs immediately calm down and return to normal behaviour. But there is another odd behaviour dogs do that is much quieter, and it usually happens when they are trying to understand something you just said. Head tilt. When dogs hear a sound they are trying to process, they will often tilt their head to one side. Many owners think this is just a cute reaction, but the head tilt actually serves a purpose. Dogs rely heavily on both sound and facial cues when interpreting communication from humans. Tilting the head can help adjust the position of their ears so they can locate the exact direction of a sound. It can also help them see a person's face more clearly by moving their snout out of the way. Some researchers believe dogs tilt their heads when they recognize certain words or emotional tones in human speech. So when you say something like walk, treat, or their name, and your dog tilts their head while looking at you, they may actually be trying to interpret what you mean. But sometimes dogs show an expression that looks almost suspicious. It is the look many owners describe as judgment, side-eye. If you have ever noticed your dog looking at you while showing the whites of their eyes, that expression is often called side-eye. In dog behaviour, this is sometimes referred to as whale eye. It happens when a dog keeps their head still but shifts their eyes to watch something happening around them. This behaviour can appear when a dog feels uncertain, protective of something, or slightly uncomfortable in a situation. For example, if someone reaches for a toy, food bowl, or favourite resting spot, the dog may watch carefully without fully turning their head. It is their way of monitoring what is happening while remaining cautious. It does not always mean aggression, but it can signal that the dog is paying very close attention to something they care about. And there is one strange behaviour dogs do that almost every dog owner laughs at, but it is actually one of the most important ways dogs gather information about each other. Butt sniffing. If you have ever watched 2 dogs meet for the first time, the interaction almost always starts the same way. They walk toward each other, circle slightly, and then immediately sniff each other's rear. To humans, it looks strange. But for dogs, this is one of the most important ways they gather information. Dogs have an incredibly powerful sense of smell, thousands of times stronger than ours. Near a dog's tail are special scent glands that release chemical signals. When one dog sniffs another dog in that area, they can learn a surprising amount of information. They can detect age, health, mood, and even whether the other dog is familiar or a stranger. In many ways, this behaviour is the canine version of introducing yourself. While humans shake hands or say hello, dogs gather information through scent. It may look odd to us, but to them it is simply communication. But sometimes dogs show strange behaviours even when no other dogs are around, especially when they are trying to release extra energy. Tail chasing. If your dog suddenly starts spinning in circles trying to catch their own tail, it might look like pure silliness, and sometimes it is. Many dogs chase their tails during play, especially when they are young and full of energy. It is a way to entertain themselves and burn off excitement. But tail chasing can also happen when a dog is bored or has too much unused energy. Without enough stimulation, dogs will sometimes invent their own games. Spinning after their tail becomes a quick way to release that energy. In rare cases, constant tail chasing can even become a repetitive behaviour linked to stress or anxiety. But for most dogs, it is simply playful curiosity. And speaking of strange behaviours that confuse owners, there is another one that often raises a lot of questions, because many people assume it means something very different than it actually does. Humping. When a dog starts humping a pillow, a toy, another dog, or sometimes even a person's leg, many owners immediately assume the behaviour is sexual. But in most cases, it has nothing to do with mating. Dogs often hump when they are overly excited, stressed, or unsure how to release strong emotions. It can happen during playtime, when guests arrive, or when a dog becomes overstimulated. Instead of knowing how to calm themselves, their body releases that tension through physical movement. This is why even young puppies and neutered dogs sometimes display this behaviour. It is not about reproduction, it is usually about emotional energy. But there are a few strange behaviours dogs do that come from instincts that are thousands of years old. Behaviours they inherited long before dogs ever lived in human homes, and one of them is something almost every dog does right before they lie down. Spinning before lying down. If you have ever watched your dog prepare to lie down, you may notice they spin in a small circle once or twice before settling into place. It might look unnecessary. After all, the floor is already flat and comfortable. But this behaviour actually comes from thousands of years of instinct. Before dogs lived in homes with soft beds and blankets, their wild ancestors slept outside. Grass, dirt, leaves and other natural surfaces were not always comfortable or safe, so wolves and early dogs would circle around an area before lying down. This movement flattened grass, pushed away debris, and helped them check the ground for anything that could be uncomfortable or dangerous. Even though modern dogs now sleep on couches and dog beds, that instinct is still wired into their brain. The quick spin is like a leftover routine from their wild past. It may only take a few seconds, but it is a behaviour that has survived through generations of evolution. But there is another strange habit dogs have that also comes from their instincts, and it often leaves owners wondering why their yard suddenly has holes in it. Digging random holes. Some dogs dig for a very simple reason. They are trying to create a den. In the wild, digging was an important survival behaviour. Dogs and wolves would dig shallow pits to create a cooler resting spot in hot weather, or a warmer protected area during colder conditions. The dirt below the surface often has a more stable temperature than the air above it, so digging helped them regulate body heat. Other dogs dig because they are trying to hide something valuable. Food, bones, or toys might get buried so they can return to them later. This behaviour is called caching, and it is another instinct inherited from wild ancestors who needed to store food for later. Even though modern dogs are fed regularly, the instinct to hide resources can still appear. But there is one strange behaviour that confuses almost every dog owner, because sometimes it looks like the dog is reacting to absolutely nothing, and yet they suddenly start barking at the air, barking at nothing. Almost every dog owner has experienced this moment. Your dog is sitting quietly, the house is calm, and suddenly they lift their head, stare toward a hallway, a window, or an empty corner of the room, and start barking. To us, it looks like they are reacting to absolutely nothing. But the truth is, dogs experience the world through senses that are far more sensitive than ours. A dog's hearing can detect frequencies humans cannot even perceive. They can hear distant footsteps outside, movement in another room, or sounds travelling through walls and floors. Dogs can also detect tiny vibrations in the ground that humans completely miss. So when a dog suddenly locks onto a direction and starts barking, there is often a stimulus present that we simply cannot detect. It might be another animal outside, a distant sound, or even something moving far beyond what our senses can pick up. But sometimes the strange behaviours dogs show are not about hearing or instinct at all. Sometimes they are about something much simpler. Following you everywhere. If your dog follows you from room to room, sits outside the bathroom door, or walks behind you every time you move through the house, it might feel a little strange. But this behaviour actually reveals something important about how dogs see their world. Dogs are pack animals. For thousands of years, survival depended on staying close to the group. Being separated from the pack meant vulnerability. So even though modern dogs live in homes instead of the wild, their instincts still push them to stay near the individuals they trust most. When your dog follows you everywhere, they are not trying to be annoying. They are maintaining proximity to the person they see as their source of safety, food, guidance, and comfort. In other words, you have become their pack. Which means many of the strange behaviours dogs show, the zoomies, the spinning before sleep, the digging, the barking, even the moments when they seem to be reacting to nothing at all, are actually pieces of an ancient language dogs have used for thousands of years, a language that reveals how they explore the world, how they communicate, and how they see the humans living beside them.